Welcome back. In this lecture, we will look at a particular class of electrodes referred to as flooded agglomerate electrodes. This is within the context of porous electrodes, and these are especially important when you are looking at porous electrodes in fuel cells. Why so? So, for example, in uh, proton exchange fuel cell, there can be this kind of a reaction. So you have protons combining with electrons and oxygen to form H2O. So if you think what are the constraints that are required for this kind of reaction to occur, so it can be thought through via the schematic. Uh, a proton would exist only in a liquid media, something like this, which has to be in touch with an electronically conducting solid media. These electrons can conduct only via a solid, and a gas phase is also present. So, a prerequisite for this reaction to occur is a region where all the three phases meet. So, in this case, in the schematic, there is a perimeter. If you look from the top, there will be a perimeter. These regions are what are referred to as three-phase boundary. So if you want to increase the rate of reaction, rate of this kind of reaction, you want to be promoting the three-phase boundary in your system. So with this as the motivation, the flooded agglomerate electrodes were introduced. What are we looking at in the schematic? So first, let's focus on this scale. In this scale, you have an electrolyte. So the electrolyte is a pure ionic conductor. On this side, you have air. What we are discussing here, the flooded agglomerate electrode is present here. This is also a porous electrode, but if you magnify this particular region, this has many catalyst agglomerate particle. Okay, each is a catalyst particle. They are bunched together. They are in contact with each other. So these are called catalyst agglomerates. And in between these particles are gases. So this is like a packed bed of catalyst particles, and gases can get transported across these particles. And if you still amplify a small part of this catalyst particle itself has interconnected electronic conductors. These darker regions, they can be like a carbon filler and so on. So they are interconnected electronic conductors, and they also have interconnected channels for conducting ionic species. So these light gray segments are indicative of liquid electrolyte which conduct um, ions. So we do have large um, probability, significant probability for the presence of three-phase boundary. For example, you have a gas phase, an electronically conducting phase, and an ionically conducting phase. So in order to increase the three-phase boundary, these flooded agglomerate electrodes were introduced. So the question we are asking is, how do you incorporate the transport and reaction into the in these catalyst particles into the framework of porous electrodes? So just to re-emphasize, these protons exist in this liquid electrolyte, and these liquid electrodes are interconnected with each other, and each particle is interconnected with each of this. So you have these electrons, they are conducted via these black objects. These are electronic conductors, and O2, which is in the gas phase, will be present here, and this gas phase are these white regions. Let's move on. So here, because there are three different reactants, many rates have to match. Okay, there are some transport rates which match with reaction rates and so on. We'll look at them more quantitatively. So the general material balance equation is presented here. We have seen these kinds of material balance equation many times in the previous lecture. Please refer to those lectures for a clarification on this. So we are going to be looking at this device at steady state. So this term drops out. So a balance of fluxes across across two surfaces is equal to reaction terms. Okay, so gradient in reaction terms. So the flux which we are talking about is the flux that is transported across a particle. Okay, so let's say you are thinking about O2. O2 concentration can be fixed at, let's say, at the particle surface, but this O2 gets absorbed on into this catalyst particle, and there can be a gradient in concentration of O2 inside the catalyst particle. So the concentration of O2 is not uniform. So that is one of the main thing which we want to be looking at here. What are the consequences when there is a significant inhomogeneity in O2 concentration? How does it affect the performance of this porous electrode? So when you are thinking about the rates, we have again looked at this kind of expressions in the context of porous electrode. So this is a current that is normalized with respect to superficial area. This is a current that is normalized with respect to actual area. Once we have such a term, we can relate this term via um, um, expressions like Butler-Romer kinetics or Tafel kinetics or linear kinetics. In this case, we have related the current rates via Tafel approximation. So you would have exchange current density, partial pressure of oxygen, and so on. And this is within the Tafel approximation. So what we assume here is the potential distribution is constant inside a particle. There can be a distribution in potential across this porous electrode, but this particle length scale is such that within a particle, the potential distribution is constant. Again, the subscripts 2 and 1 refer to 2 refers to the liquid electrolyte, and 1 refers to the electronic conductor phase. So all these things have been clarified in previous lectures. Please refer to them. Moving on, what are the assumptions? We have stated this, we are operating at a steady state, and we have stated the assumptions that have gone into this. So what are the boundary conditions? So at the center of the particle, just due to the symmetry of the system, we can say there exists no gradient in concentration. And then at the surface of the particle, which is indicated as R equal to R of the particle, we relate the concentration of oxygen dissolved inside the particle via a Henry's law form of expression. So this is Henry's law constant. So this is the pressure of O2 outside the particle. So this pressure can vary across this region, but each particle sees a particular partial pressure which determines the concentration of O2 at the surface inside the particle. So solving for with this boundary conditions, solving using these equations, we get an expression for flux of, let's say, O2 here at the particle surface. So here, this K is related to these terms. So this can be solved. How to solve this exactly is not the uh, subject matter of this particular lecture, but this is a simple equation that can be solved, and we are solving this within the Tafel approximation. So what is that we want to be emphasizing? So here there is coupling between some aspects of the porous electrode and some aspects of the agglomerated catalyst particle. So we are looking at a reaction which involves, which requires a three-phase contact. And if you solve for the flux via the Faraday's law, we can get to the current in the porous electrode. So what do we mean by that? So supposing we have the flux here, okay, so that is indicated by these terms. We have adopted the same notations across the porous electrode lecture series. So please look at the previous lectures if you're unsure what these terms mean. So we just these are the stoichiometric coefficients that go into this reaction, and this is just relating the fluxes via the Faraday's law. So this is the current that goes into the porous electrode model. Again, these currents are related in the following manner within the porous electrode model. So some information that is obtained at the particle level, that is the flux that is entering into the particle, can be correlated to current that goes into the porous electrode model. In turn, the porous electrode model also provides the local potential difference, these terms, and partial pressure of O2. Okay, so when we are thinking about the variation across the porous electrode, we use the porous electrode model, which has been developed in the last few lectures. And when some aspects of some parameters have to be obtained by solving for transport and current within the catalyst particle. So this is just a broad idea. Unless you solve some problems exactly, probably the details and the coupling will not be that clear. We'll attempt to do that in the homework problems. But more importantly, uh, the significance of this model is presented in this slide. So we are looking at this kind of a system. So what is important to understand is within the catalyst particle, the concentration of O2 is not a constant. It varies at different sections of the catalyst particle. So the concentration is a function of R. In, so across this catalyst, we can fix the catalyst, the concentration at the surface of the particle, but as you go inside the catalyst, the concentration of oxygen decreases. So theta is a function of R, and this concentration, expression for this concentration is provided here. Again, we clarified what is K squared in the previous lecture. So as a function of K, the concentration varies as non-dimensional R. So if K is very small, the inhomogeneity in the concentration is not that much. However, with an increase in K, there is a significant inhomogeneity in the concentration of O2. Let's understand what is K. So if you look at K, K would increase with particle size, right? That makes sense, right? So if um, particle is larger, there is a greater chance there are significant transport restrictions for the transport of O2. If the diffusivity, effective diffusivity for O2 diffusion inside the catalyst particle is less, K would increase. So intuitively, it makes sense to expect that with increase in K, there is greater inhomogeneity, non-uniformity in O2 concentration. So with this, we can define what is the effectiveness of a catalyst particle. So this expression also would make intuitive sense if you look at the series expansion for cotangent hyperbolic functions. Those are expanded in this manner. So if you put k equal to 1 and few values for k and connect it um, with these uh, values, you can see why the efficiency would vary in the way it varies. So just put certain values of k into this expression and see how the efficiency varies. Okay, so it's just use two terms of the series expansion. The efficiencies would become clear. So this presentation is very, very similar to what you do in chemical reaction engineering. Chemical engineers who've taken a reaction engineering course must be familiar with Thiele modulus. Okay, so this is this models were introduced, I think, in 1930s in chemical engineering when you are looking at um, catalysis in the context of an heterogeneous medium. All right. So in catalyst particle, the concentration at the surface, the concentration of reactant at the surface is different from the concentration of the reactant inside the catalyst particle. If there is a significant variation in concentration, the inside of the catalyst particle is not effectively utilized. Therefore, the efficiency decreases. Even in this case, as you increase K, as you go inside the catalyst particle, the concentration is decreases significantly. So the inside of the catalyst particle is not effectively utilized. So you have to do certain things in such a way. Either you can decrease the catalyst particle radius or do few other uh, changes with respect to other parameters in such a way the concentration of one of the reactant or all the reactants is adequately uniform so as to increase the efficiency. So it is better to first, whenever you are trying to understand something new, if you've understood something related in some other context, it's good to think through the newly introduced topic via a topic, via a related topic that you have already understood. For example, for chemical engineers, Thiele modulus is probably a familiar topic. Just refresh your understanding of Thiele modulus and come back and relate um, what we have discussed here to Thiele modulus. Just a Wikipedia link on Thiele modulus will give you sufficient clarity on what we mean by Thiele modulus. So in the next lecture, we'll be looking at electrodes, porous electrodes, where convection becomes important. So see you in the next lecture. Thank you.